welcome to the first ever episode of Aria 51.
This podcast is brought to you by the University of Cincinnati Opera Club with the intention of making opera more accessible, relatable, and understandable for UC college students.
Or anyone who's willing to listen to two dumb broads rant on for a half an hour.
Absolutely. So, hopefully, after listening to us, opera shouldn't be something so foreign and mysterious to you anymore. Hence, the use of a clever pun in the title of the show. A teeny little disclaimer, this show will probably have some crude language because we're kind of loose cannons in here.
Right.
And speaking of cannons, I'm your host who does the most, Leia Nyack.
And I'm the star of your show, Corey Cochran. It's also my pleasure to introduce to you our first ever guest of honor. For our first episode, Leia and I, we really wanted to start out with a bang.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we wanted someone who exudes confidence.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted someone with just the leadership and the creativity. Mm-hmm. We wanted to introduce you to the new face of opera, the future of the industry, someone who represents the divine, feminine, and thinking outside of the box.
Absolutely, we did.
Unfortunately, she was unavailable today, so we bring to you Maya McGuire.
Yes! Oh, drama diva.
Come on, dress.
Dress and all. Ooh.
Yes.
Sorry, is that enough room for you guys?
Yes.
Are you
I think
manspreading with
we're
your
good.
gown?
Yes.
Ooh. Welcome, Diva.
Yes,
For our
thanks.
first ever episode, we had to have you on to really set the tone for this podcast.
That was a good pun.
I get it.
We are full of puns here. And I'd like to start by first introducing each one of us and our roles in the opera club and sort of how we came to this position and why we're here.
Okay, so I'm Corey, as I have said before, and as you have just heard by Leia. My background is in costuming, not opera. I am from Texas. Right, I hear you giggling. I decided that Ohio was the next step for me.
It was definitely the upgrade.
The upgrade in my journey.
You were like, how conservative can we get from here?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was yes. So, and that's all you need to know for right now. Maya, would you like to go?
Yeah, I am Maya McGuire. I am the president of Opera Club. Yeah, they said it couldn't be done.
It's me.
Yeah, I
Editor?
have been doing Opera Club for I guess 2 or 3 years now. And this will be my last year because I'm graduating. I'm a senior voice student at CCM. I'm from DC.
Hey yo, DC.
District of...
God.
We did say there was going to be crude language, so...
You were warned.
Is that allowed? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely it's allowed.
Yeah, editor, is that allowed? Yeah.
Alright, well my name is Leia and I'm also a senior in the voice program at CCM. I am originally from San Francisco and what am I? I used to be vice president, but Maya and I kind of got into Opera Club around the same time. And I was vice president last year. This year I decided to relinquish my position to some new talent.
Spreading the wealth.
Spreading the wealth because I am so kind and humble, truly.
Yeah, some would say that.
Someone said that. But now this year I am co-social chair with Corey, hence why
And that's
we're
me.
doing this. That's great.
I thought you
guys.
were Craig.
Oh, hi, I'm Craig.
Hey, I'm Craig.
But on the topic of that,
On the topic
of Craig.
Craig?
So I wanted to, ask about what your relationship with opera was.
Really good segue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm really good at it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it
interesting how
really
you
went
got
into
there.
it. Yeah.
Well, let's start over here since
Yeah.
I was last. My relationship to opera. So I started singing classical music, I think, right before high school. I went to performing arts high school with a classical voice program, so that was my first ever exposure to it. I'm very thankful that I grew up listening. Well, I didn't grow up. I grew up listening to opera. Let's say it was something that I shared with my grandparents. A very big love for it. They had tapes of the three tenors in concert on their TV, and we would rewatch them all the time. And I don't know. There was something about the freedom and the absolute joy of that performance and how it made everybody so happy to watch opera. Even if you don't know anything about opera, if you see an opera singer singing on the street, it would make you so happy. I was very drawn to that. And yeah, I discovered classical singing when I went to my arts high school, and then by my sophomore, junior year of high school, someone was like, hey, you could actually do this as a career. So I was like, what the hell? And here I am, still as a classical singer. We're gonna go into grad schools and start auditioning for the big boy things and the yaps and going into the little meat grinder of the freelance artist thing. The pipeline.
Where there's so much wealth for all of us.
That's an opera industry term. The pipeline.
There we go.
Maya.
Moving on swiftly.
I'm really good at these transitions.
Yeah.
Keeping us on track. I started singing. I have two lawyer parents, and I had no real connection to opera. Like, I didn't have any grandparents who listened to opera, but that sounds really sweet.
That was really sweet.
I just started singing for choirs and was really obnoxious, would try out for all the solos.
Not just choirs. She was
Just
a
everything.
show choir mama. She was a glee girl.
Yeah, I'm really good at jazz hands. So I started doing that type of thing, and then I started singing in the children's chorus for Washington National Opera, and that's where I really fell in love with classical music and classical singing. I remember distinctly I was in the children's chorus for Carmen, and there was this one scene where they had all the children and the extras and stuff on the ground, pretending to be asleep, eating little scraps of bread like us impoverished Carmenians do. And Carmen did her famous card aria, and it blew me away. Every night I would be on stage eating my little bread, pretending to fall asleep, and I was just filled with this awe of what the human voice could do and how it could make people feel. So I was like, yeah, I want to do this. So then I went to a performing arts high school, and then I'm here at CCM, and we'll see where it goes. I would love to keep going and sing
now
stuff
you're
like
on
that.
So, and you might sing Carmen.
Yeah, we'll see if my teacher will let me.
Ain't that
I brought
the
it up a
truth.
couple times. She's been avoiding my texts and my calls, so I'm gonna have to get on that.
Oh, she joined the club.
Exactly.
Now, but back to what you were talking about. You mentioned a word that some of our viewers may not know, and it is sort of important to what we are doing now. You mentioned the word aria. Would you mind explaining what an aria is?
Ooh, this is an educational podcast, mama.
Yes. Well, an aria is a song excerpted from an opera, and it's one person singing, and it's usually very dramatic and beautiful and stunning. Diva boots.
House
Diva
down.
Boots, the house down.
Yes,
Houston.
mama.
Did I miss anything?
Deceased. No, that's it. Just an aria is just a solo song in an opera. So when your favorite star takes the stage and has her diva moment, it's probably an aria. So a famous aria would be Carmen's Habanera. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows the Toreador aria.
Even if you think you don't,
You still do.
look it
You
up.
do.
You know it.
Everybody knows the Nessun Dorma.
Wait, actually, I hear.
Oh,
Editors. Yeah.
that's it. Yep.
I love that song. I love that aria.
Everybody knows the Queen of the Night aria. Duh. That's it. It's just one person singing on stage, and that's your little bit of vocab for the day. See, we're helping the children learn.
Call us TLC, the Learning Channel.
TLC. I love that band.
Trying to connect the.
Yeah.
Corey, tell us about your relationship to opera.
Oh, that's me. Hi, I'm Corey. So my relationship to opera started a bit later than both of these people. I did not. Yes. I did not have any type of relationship to opera. I didn't have grandparents that listened to it or anything like that. I went to a public high school in Texas. I was a part of theater, and even in the theater scene, I really didn't have too much of a clue about opera. It wasn't until my freshman year of college when I was roommates with Emilio Vasquez, who was a voice student here at CCM, and it was a COVID year, and we had most of our classes online. So I would
you were confined with an opera singer. God rest
That
his
is the
soul.
seventh layer of hell.
Yeah, so I would be there with my silly little sewing machine, Yeah, and then Milo would be on the other side of the room, just screaming, and it was so beautiful, and I really sort of started getting an interest, and Milo taught me an excerpt from an aria, and I was really, really getting into it. And then the next year, I noticed that they needed help with costumes, and I was able to talk with the director and be able to costume design for the undergrad opera. So from then on, I really just started going full force into the opera world, and now the past 2 summer stock jobs I've had have been at the Glimmerglass Opera Festival. So it's really been a quick slope of a journey, but I'm so happy that it happened.
Look at that.
Corey is so talented.
Absolutely, so talented. And thank God, because we can't have this podcast dominated by singers. So we get another perspective from someone in the theater world. Because Corey has such a great insight on all these genres, and also I think is a very valuable resource for a lot of the things that I think we'll be talking about on this podcast, just about like what needs to grow in opera, what opera could borrow from, how opera has also inspired other genres and other forms of entertainment. So Corey's right at the heart of that, because at his heart he is still a big theater girl. Like, she would have had a BFA by now.
I'm so close to my BFA. 1 more year.
Big fat ass, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's exactly what it stands for.
No, but it's important to have, I think, someone like me here, because it shows that you don't have to have a background in this. You don't have to have any relationship to opera. You can really just be here because you have a desire to learn about something new, and then you can really fall into it and realize that there is a space for you in this community.
No, it's so good to have people like you for visibility, because like you don't have to be funny, you don't have to be pretty, you don't... Anyway.
Corey, could you read the next question for us?
Yes, I can read. I learned how to do that last year.
For the children.
Yes. Now, Leia, this is more of a question for you. Why did we want to make this podcast?
Because we found that the biggest obstacle to getting people to come watch opera performances was just that, like, our generation simply doesn't know enough about it and feels really intimidated by it. And we wanted to create a platform where we celebrate what makes our generation so unique, but also why we feel a relevance and a connection to opera. So, like, any of you who have never heard or don't know enough about opera can feel empowered to be like, oh, actually, this is something really exciting. This is something that I can go to and I feel like I know more about, and I'm ready to, like, invest in it. That's why we're dressed so eloquent. It's because...
At least some of us.
Eloquent.
Anyways. We're dressed so elegant because I think that this is what opera should be about. It was about celebrating a chance to just be a diva, enjoy drama, opulence, costumes, lighting, all of it. This is the space, opera is the space for all of us to celebrate beauty and individuality. And we're gonna bring our fresh, young, new perspective for you.
Young?
I'm younger than all these hoes, just to let the record show.
That actually is true.
I will pull up
Stenographer, erase that.
Cut the track.
But what do you think, Maya? As the president of Opera Club, you encouraged us. You were the one who brought this idea up to us. So,
oh my god, I guess I did.
You are
Cut
the
that.
inspiration.
No, yeah, I think that I second everything that you say.
Thank you.
I think that, like,
Your Venmo will be coming later.
I appreciate that. I prefer Cash App if that's possible.
I only have Zelle.
Oh, okay. I can work with PNC, it's fine.
Okay.
But
You guys can also Cash App us if you want.
Yes, Cash Apps will be in the bio.
So anyways, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, by my wonderful guests. I mean, I guess I'm the guest.
You are
All
the guest.
By the hosts. Goodness gracious. Anyways, I think that opera is something that is like this tradition that is, you know, kind of like a relic of the past. And like if we keep it in a museum in a glass box and we keep it just as that, no one's gonna want to interact with it, fall in love with it. It's going to get dusty and crusty and probably musty. And I don't think we should do that. I think
Those
that
are really good
Thank you.
rhymes. Thank you, Dr. Seuss.
We don't talk about him.
What did he do?
Did you do something?
Next episode, you will find out what Dr.
What
Seuss did.
Dr. Seuss did.
Cliffhanger.
But I think that you're right. It needs to be relevant. It needs to be fresh. We were like in our opera class, and he was talking about how opera can critique society, because all these operas that we're performing in the canon are from hundreds of years ago. And a lot of times it's like, how is this relatable to our generation? How is this relatable to 21st century technology and humor and all this stuff? And I think at the root of it, there's like humanity in every single one of these operas. And if we are smart about our directing and our staging, and we have leadership and they prioritize like their performers over dead composers, I think that these artifacts can become alive again and can become really palatable to young people. Because I mean, I've had so many friends who've never seen an opera and then will like come to one of our operas or you know, any sort of classical performance and leave like crying. And it's powerful stuff. And we underestimate it because there's so often like this idea of like respecting the past in a way that's like old and tired, and that's boring.
Exactly.
I don't like those operas, and I don't like companies that like don't try fresh new takes on old stuff. So that's my opinion.
And look at us, like, do we
My
look like
opinion?
typical opera singers? Do we look like do we look like the idea that you have of opera singers? Like
Our
Corey,
pretty
maybe.
asses, like Corey
Opera singers are
maybe.
beautiful. Yeah, Corey looks like a very conventional opera singer. But like, we're here to shake some things up. That's a really good point. That like, it's time to interact with it more. It's time to like.
Some of the first opera in the some of the first theater in the United States was opera. So before this new age of musical theater, which didn't really develop until the past couple of hundred years, but opera was the gateway to what we know as musical theater now. So it is really just and it was the only form of theater allowed at some points of history in Europe. So it really is a thing that has stayed for so long, and it will continue to stay because it matches and it develops and it continues with the current times.
Yeah.
And that's why it is really important to me that we continue what we're doing.
You know, Corey, you make a really good point, because I have a lot of people asking me this question about musical theater being more like the American version of opera, and it's the thing that people are more excited or more eager to go see right now because it's a bit more current, the music is a bit more current, it's all in English. But really, what makes opera and musical theater different?
Opera and musical theater are... It's interesting because when you look at them on paper, you would be like, what's the difference?
Right.
It's just the execution of them. Like, opera singers have a different type of training than musical theater singers do.
We are supposed to be unmiked. That's a very essential difference. That opera singers are technically unamplified singers, whereas musical theater people usually have a microphone, right?
Almost always have a
Yes,
microphone.
probably.
Yes. So it's really just a fact of like, opera singers can go out there, they won't always dance, but they can. They can sometimes.
Don't ask me to dance.
Okay, so
We
don't
were
ask these
planning
two to
on
dance.
it.
But like there's just in musical theater, it does tend to be a little bit more of a modern reference than opera is. But that isn't always the case, because there's operas that are done with current references, with things that are going on. There's new operas that are being made and debuted all the time. It's just the fact that musical theater right now has made its way more into the mainstream of the zeitgeist currently, rather than
Come on. It's
Rather-
German.
It was German.
that was
Das
German.
ist Deutsch.
Anyways, before you interrupted him.
Yeah. Zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist, yes.
Right.
It really just is. If you like musical theater, you will most likely like opera,
Yeah.
because they really are one and the same. One sort of developed from another,
True.
and it can develop back.
Yeah.
That's a threat.
That's a promise.
Not to mention that some of your favorite musicals were originally operas. I mean, obviously
Rent.
Miss Saigon was Madame Butterfly, Rent was La
Bohème.
Bohème, Moulin Rouge was La Traviata. I found this
Oh,
out
yeah.
the other day, but like
Mhm.
amazing. But there's so many things that all these plots still come from opera, and there's a reason that they resonated with us and have outlived us and been adapted so many times. Oh, I mean, of course, Hades Town and Orpheus.
And Chicago is from Le Nozze di Figaro, right?
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
totally.
That was a joke. So
Cue the laugh track.
laugh track right here.
Yeah.
But like, and then there's also mixes of the two. Like there is technically opera, but also technically musical theater when it comes to like something like Candide.
Yeah, some Leonard Bernstein.
Or like Phantom of the Opera. Do people count that as opera?
Not really.
But it has
Strictly
opera in the
musical
name.
theater. Exactly. It's false
She
advertisement.
does sing really high. But
Yeah.
I know that it's confusing. It's confusing because like Golden Age musicals,
Right.
like Sondheim and Bernstein are sometimes like West Side Story is sometimes performed by classical musicians.
Or Gilbert
Sound
and
of
Sullivan,
Music.
too.
Gilbert and Sullivan,
Yeah, absolutely.
all Pirates of Penzance, all those.
Yep.
Candide is delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing is like musical theater singers and opera singers, like there's a lot of crossover,
Mhm.
which I think is something also that I think for Opera Club we try to encourage with like the students is like if you have a passion for musical theater but you have this classical training, like go for it, do it, learn how to dance,
But yeah.
learn how to do a split.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
And if you are really into musical theater, but you're afraid of going into opera because you think it's going to be more boring or it's going to be in a different language, you might be surprised at some of the similarities that they have.
Right.
I think just, again, the really crucial difference is just like the unamplified singing. The singing that we do just takes up a lot more volume all the time because we're not using microphones, and therefore the expectations for the acting maybe are a little bit lesser. You're not going to see us doing kick flips because we then have to sing the high C at the end, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's it, but you will be surprised. I think anybody who witnesses an opera singer in person and sees like the volume that they have to sing at, it is truly athletic, it is truly marvelous. It is one of the amazing things that like I watch an opera singer and I'm like, I can't believe the human race can do this kind of shit. It's like truly, it like goes beyond the limits of the human body, you know?
I encourage everyone right now, if you have not seen an opera in person, see one. It's going to change the way that you look at when people talk about opera, even just us right now, because it's just, there is something about seeing an opera in person, hearing how these voices travel through the space that you are in and just connect with you. You can feel it deep in your chest whenever there is someone up on that stage singing the finale of their number. It is just magical.
Absolutely. Maya, I'm curious because you also did a lot of like, she did a lot of contemporary music. She was also a really good jazz singer. Like,
You've never heard me sing jazz.
I literally have watched you sing videos from like in high school. You know
Okay,
what?
that's fair.
scientifically
Anyways.
makes sense.
Insert
Go on.
clip.
But for someone, for someone who also like ventures a lot into contemporary styles, like what draws you to opera? What do you think? Like, how would you appeal to an audience from that style of music to enjoy opera?
Yeah, I don't know because like
Okay, next question.
I mean, there's examples of things that like some tunes that have become so synonymous with jazz, like Summertime, that were originally from
Exactly.
an opera. Like a lot of those, yeah, especially George Gershwin's style of things that like.
no,
totally-
yeah, like stuff from Porgy and Bess.
Totally.
There's some stuff from Showboat.
Dorothy Dandridge doing Carmen, also that's like very based off of the opera. Clearly, a very good crossover.
Yeah.
So how do you think of it?
We're mentioning a lot of names of things right now. And that can sound overwhelming. I don't know half of what they're saying right now. And if that's you right now, you can go and just continue listening to us. You can go and look it up. It's always going to be an educational experience trying to learn about more things that you didn't know.
Absolutely.
Just know that this is like still welcoming to all. We're just saying things that are familiar to us that can be transmitted to you.
Oh, that's such
Love
a good
that.
disclaimer, because we have spent like maybe probably 10 years by now in this genre and hearing names and shit, so don't feel overwhelmed. All of these things are things to look up. We can provide information and links maybe somewhere,
Absolutely.
like to
Mhm.
like allow people to just find out more, because this is how you find out. Honestly, half of us just found out through like hearing names
Yeah.
and then just going on YouTube and looking something up.
Yeah.
So
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
Yeah.
no, don't apologize. No,
Okay, I take it back.
I think that like jazz in particular is just so engaging, and it always has been. I went to school that like the concentration was a lot of jazz, especially for instrumentalists and stuff. And I find that there's just so much freedom in jazz. I think that classical music doesn't always have, and I've been grappling with that. Like everything is like one of a kind, like the scats and like all these cool creations and chords that are so interactive between musician and singer. Like,
What's a scat?
oh god.
And that is scatting, everyone. Thank you. Please continue.
And I think like as I am studying in conservatory and stuff, like I'm learning that there can be more freedom with classical music. The more comfortable, the more you study all this stuff. And what I see in jazz music with scats, I can see in Handel melismas, and what I see with like the rubato and like sultriness of jazz, I can see in like how I don't know, maybe like cadenzas
Absolutely.
in Puccini or something like that.
We're
like,
yelling a lot of words at you. Eventually, I think we're gonna do one episode that's just truly
a little
like,
vocab.
a
yeah.
little vocab episode. Like
I
a
think
little
that would
get
be
to know
real
opera
nice.
episode.
Or maybe every time we say a word, it's like ding
There can be
at
a
the bottom,
definition.
and then it does a definition.
Okay.
Once we get an editor, we'll really try and figure that out.
Yeah, we have so many people trying to like edit for us. Like we put up this like for hire thing, and like our DMs are just blowing up.
No. So, anyways, no, she makes a really good point. She really does. Was there anything more you'd like to add on?
Not really. I
Thanks.
just-
Okay, thank you. So,
No, wait,
Yeah,
wait,
You're such good hosts.
wait, no, I want to bounce off of that because that was a really good point, Maya. I think like the way that we appreciate jazz for like the musicianship of the musicianship of the musicians.
Love.
There's a really big improvisatory aspect of opera that we don't pay attention to. We think that it's super calculated and super cold and with kind of like
Perfectionism.
because we have a conductor and everything is meant to be laid out a certain way. But the more we start incorporating also that knowledge of jazz and the feeling that goes in it, the feeling of just like everybody has a role to play in making the music come alive, the better opera gets, the more exciting it is to make that music. I mean, Maya and I can probably testify that that's something that made me fall in love with opera. It's just like that feeling of being in the rehearsal room, making music with everybody, everybody's pushing each other to do more things, to try out new things. And even though these scores are hundreds of years old and they've been done billions of times, like it's still something new and special can be added every single time.
And when you have a good director who allows the singers to have like agency over
Totally.
what they want for their character, for their plot, whatever, it adds this sort of spontaneity, this courage, I think, that is like really visceral, and you can hear it in the music when you can see that the singers are in charge and not like the music being in charge, or you know, the tradition being in charge.
Totally. And I think that also goes with a lot of the stereotypes about opera, that it's always about what the composer would have wanted, what Bach would have wanted, even though he's dead and in the grave. Like, we're not just a
By a
genre.
long time.
Yeah.
At least 2 years.
At least 2.
But you know, like there's been a lot of concentration on the composer and what happened however many centuries ago. But in reality, like there's so much creativity happening. Like
I agree.
there's so much innovation happening in classical music, and the more you get into it, the more you see it, that you see these like brilliant new interpretations happening, these people like changing lyrics, people changing notes, changing things, keys, whatever.
I can hop off of that because
Yes.
that is a main reason of why I actually ended up loving costuming for opera was because there was a lot more freedom to come with these pieces that had done so many times. Every director is trying to do something new with it, and a lot of the times they will be able to ask their design team, like, do you have any ideas of how you think this piece should be done?
Absolutely.
Is there any direction that you see could really work well with these characters to tell the story that we want to portray? There is a lot of times that that is done, and that sort of allows for more creative freedom in opera rather than musical theater, because a lot of musical theater will be based in a place, based in a time.
Same design.
That's
same
true.
idea.
You follow that. If another production does it, they really don't ever change that, because a lot of the times with the way that musical theater rights work, they don't allow you to change things like that. But since
Totally.
operas are so old, they really, there's a lot of right stuff that can be avoided with things like that.
Yeah.
So and from a design perspective, it is so freeing to be able to just have
That's so
such a creative liberty on a piece.
That is a really, really good
I
point.
never thought about
That
that.
I think well, of course, that's why we have Corey for his brilliant perspective. But it is true. The fact that these operas are so old means that we have no choice but to make it fresh and new every time. When you go to see it in one opera house or another, I've seen several operas several times at different houses, and I still get blown away by how people take on different meanings, how the singer interprets the song and makes them very relevant to themselves and personal. Like, that's the beauty of it, that there is a lot more freedom to just do something new. I've seen a Carmen that was set in the 18th century. I've seen a Carmen that was set in the 1960s, and it takes on a whole new meaning because you consider like gender dynamics, you consider political relations, you consider like all these things, and you see brand new costumes, and it just becomes that much more exciting because even
I
though
designed a costume for the post-apocalypse.
that's true,
for Carmen.
he does do that a lot. Anyways.
Right.
Okay.
But like you really do get a fresh new perspective of things, because even though these texts are ancient, like they are old and they're really old poems, you see a whole new side of what love can mean, what grief can mean, what heartbreak can mean. It truly is fascinating.
You know, and I've always said that heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Insert clip.
Insert quote.
I mean, I might be cutting into our next question when we ask of like why opera is worth it to us, but that's a thing for me that is really crucial. When you're in your English class and you need to study the classics and you need to read Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn and whatever the heck,
Oh Lord.
and you have to look at those horrible words and people are like, well, it's part of history, like
Right.
you just need to do it, you need to accept it, you need to read it because it's important. That's the beauty of opera. Opera, it is very old and a lot of it is going to be outdated, but you have the ability to do it over and over again, to interpret things, to change things. And I think that's why it's such a relevant tool for like even a lot of our political conversations today. That's like, we need to know what happened in the past. We need to address those uncomfortable moments. We need to talk about those moments in history, but we can also criticize it, as Maya was saying earlier, and interpret it and make it fresh. We can make it relevant to us today, because why is it important for you to know what happened back in the 18th century? Why is it important for you to see these things on your screen? I think it's a great opportunity to rewrite the past or reinterpret the past. That not a lot of, like, you can't do that with a movie, you know? Once a movie doesn't age well, it's like right now it's really hard for me to watch a Johnny Depp movie, you know? Like, you know, exactly. It's really hard for me to watch a Johnny Depp movie, but operas, there's always something fresh and new that can be done better or just differently, simply. And I think that's something to keep. A tradition that has outlived us by so many centuries,
True.
but still constantly has room for innovation and creativity.
Absolutely. Maya, would you like to jump off of that? We did get really into the next question of what makes opera worth it to you.
I think that opera has the ability to connect complete strangers and create empathy for these characters on stage, and you're able to see yourself and see other people. And I think there's just something so special about live performance and being in a space with hundreds of other people in this silent room with this just regard and care for art. And I think that the voice has such a unique ability. It's like the pinnacle of expression. you think about like a baby crying, a mother going through labor, you know, like all these things that are so like deeply human in us are very expressive through the voice. And when like we get to put that on stage and be so vulnerable, it's just, there's nothing really like it. So I think that's maybe like at the root for me, like what makes it so special.
I do want to stress here that we all will go out and we'll support our friends in the musical theater. We'll support our friends in dance. We'll support our friends
And
who
we
are
love
straight
it.
play
We don't
actors.
do opera all the time. We have things to do in our free time.
And that is such an important part of this because we are all here in this industry together. We all have our specialties in it, but we're all here together to provide an audience with an experience that they'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what opera means to me.
Aww, love.
But what's an opera stereotype that you absolutely stand by? I can go first.
Go first.
Personally. There are so many times you will go and see an opera, you sit down in the audience, the curtain is shut, music starts playing, overture is playing, curtain up, and there's a love seat. Every time
I love a love seat.
every time that there is a couch center stage, I know it's going to be integral to the story, and I know that they are going to be all over that couch.
I love that.
So I love me a good opera couch.
That is so specific, and I've never thought about.
Speaking of, this is the opera couch, and I just think it would be really funny if we called it La Sofa.
Welcome to our La Sofa, by
Welcome
the way.
to our
This is
La
our
Sofa.
home. We're also roommates. I feel like I should have given that disclaimer before, but we're all roommates, and we didn't want to carpool, so we're filming here.
Yeah.
Can you explain why La Sofa is funny?
Actually, it's like one of those jokes that doesn't need to be explained because it's like automatically so funny.
Totally.
But, solfege is another, I guess, vocab word that we could learn about.
Does
Yes.
it sound of music?
Yeah, do, a dear, a female, dear, a drop a golden sun.
Jazz.
Yeah, so do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, la, so,
La
fa.
Sofa.
La Sofa.
There we go.
It's really, really hilarious.
Yes.
Okay, so we're making this the thing. This is part of the shtick now.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly.
Comment what you think about the La Sofa.
Yeah, tell us what you think about the La Sofa. Anyway,
So,
opera stereotype that
yes.
I stand by. That Sopranos are dumb. And I feel like it should be really sexist and it should be bad, but here's the thing. I'm in my bimbo era, and there's something, I swear to God, when you're singing those high notes, it burns off your brain cells. And I really do believe that.
And I really do believe that.
And I really do believe
I don't
that.
think it's an era, babe. I think it's a lifestyle at
It's
this
a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It's true. It's a century.
point. Yeah, it is. However long you've been around.
I do believe in Sopranos being dumb, and I love it.
Yes.
I'm not being paid to think. I'm being paid to sing high notes.
Yeah. And to
You
look
get
pretty.
paid.
Y'all are getting paid for this?
Y'all
So-
told me I was.
Our
And
cash app is gonna be
yes.
in the comments.
Yes, absolutely.
Patreon.
Right. If this really kicks off, we'll start a Patreon. We'll start a YouTube members. We'll start an OnlyFans. Whatever y'all want.
Can we do OnlyFans? You just like, if you want to hear me sing, you just pay $5 to hear me sing an aria.
Yeah, but your toes are out.
Yeah.
Something
I
like
have to
that.
make sure my toes are not out. You're not getting.
I know. I was gonna say.
No, it's not shown from this angle.
Foot fetishes in the next episode.
Yeah. But we have covered a lot of stuff today.
We have.
We have gone through a lot of information in this first episode.
Truly.
Is there any sort of concluding words you would like these viewers to leave with?
Go watch an opera. Like, seriously, if there's anybody in your area, you can even look it up on YouTube or just sit through it. Watch an opera. Don't let your first opera be The Marriage of Figaro because it is too fucking long.
Yeah.
If you want to start our opera, then we can maybe like do a little recommendation section. I feel like we should do like a little recommendations. Like
I think we could
Spotify
do like a
playlist.
short,
That's cute.
like a short
Should we do like
moment.
a Spotify playlist like of our
Totally.
favorite songs?
I would love that.
And our favorite arias, because that's a new word we learned today.
Yes.
Vocab word.
Everyone go out and use Aria at least one time today.
Anyways, guys, Maya, thank thank you for coming on Aria 51.
Oh my god, it's my
Yes.
pleasure. I had to travel so far to get here.
She did.
Y'all paying for the Uber, right?
We already talked about how there was no
Anyways.
Ubers.
Gotcha.
Thanks for watching.
Yes, thank you all so much, and you can catch us next time on another episode of
Aria 51.